Welcome to the SoftwareONE Beyond Naked vSphere webinar. My name's Kyle Geisler. I'm a VMware software-defined data center specialist, and I work with SoftwareONE and their customers. I'm going to take some time this morning to tell you about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and it's really kind of the cornerstone of the software-defined data center, and that's analytics for IT, specifically around performance and capacity. So, a couple of housekeeping things real quick. If you have some questions during the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A. If it's a good one, I'll talk about it in the middle. And as we roll through, I'll try and get to all of those at the end. I'm going to save a little bit of time to address everyone's questions. But definitely feel free to ask questions. I like to interrupt my presentations and answer those just to make sure that we're covering content that's relevant for everyone. So, okay, yeah, with all that done, let's get started here. Usually, when I have this conversation with customers and partners alike, I like to jump out for a second and look kind of at the big picture of VMware's overall vision and kind of our strategy for IT. And then dive into this specific component of it. I want to give you the lay of the land and let you see where it is, where this part of the puzzle fits, right? All in all, I think we're all feeling the pressures of cloud economies and cloud functionalities changing every business model that's out there today, right? We've seen it, we've heard it from our customers, and what we've realized is that it's time for a completely new model of IT. It's one that needs to be able to rapidly respond to the needs of business in an instant way, and adapt as those needs of the business change fluidly. Yet the whole time deliver it with an architecture that's at its core intrinsically secure. These are our kind of core tenets for what we're calling the brave new IT. So I want to lay out what our architecture for IT looks like, and then we're going to drill in specifically on performance and capacity analytics and how that can get you started on a road to a software-defined data center. So I think everyone in IT would agree that everything we do is all about our applications, right? Whether they're traditional apps that we've been supporting for decades or more, or even the new modern cloud-based applications that are making their way into our organizations, and we in IT are being responsible for managing and controlling those, right? It's all about the applications. VMware, we believe that the software-defined data center is the right architecture, right? Leveraging virtualized compute. And now, with our latest advances in virtualized network and storage as well, you can leverage any hardware platform to deliver a truly software-defined data center. This week, the SoftwareONE radio show was broadcasting live out of our Austin office, our office here in Austin, Texas. And Ben Marshall, one of the pre-sales architects from SoftwareONE, made a great point that, our data centers are no longer defined by four walls, right? They're defined by how we're able to deliver our applications to our end users. So whether you build your own hardware, whether you leverage converged or hyper-converged infrastructures, it's those platforms bring a lot of value to the table. But what's really giving you the flexibility, the agility, the speed and the security that you need to support your lines of business today, it's the software-defined nature of those architectures. There's a lot of talk about cloud, and I'm going to break from the company line and tell you, one of my favorite memes I've seen going across the internet lately, and that is, there is no cloud. It's just somebody else's computer. Which I think is funny, but also very true, right? And at VMware lately, we've been talking a lot about the hybrid cloud, but let's be real, that's something we've been doing in IT for a long time. It's just connecting on-prem and off-prem. That's what makes a hybrid cloud, right? So the software-defined data center is the most robust platform for connecting on-prem and off-prem, in part because it leverages a best-in-class cloud management platform. And when you have that and you've connected on-prem and off-prem, regardless of where it is, private or managed or in a public cloud solution, that creates one cloud. This is our new architecture for IT. This is our new mantra at VMware. It's one cloud for any application. I think it's simple and to the point and clearly defines what we want to build for our customers and what our partners are helping us bring to market. And then when you put on top of that best-in-class end-user computing solutions like Horizon and AirWatch, we can truly deliver one cloud for any application on any device, from tablet to Tesla. So that's VMware's big picture, and yeah, it's a little fluffy, but hey, we've got 300 different products these days that make it all up, and we had to figure out a way to kind of succinctly summarize what we're trying to deliver for our customers. So one cloud, any application, any device. That's what VMware's approach is all about, and we think it's the best approach to deliver a truly instant, fluid, and secure architecture. So that said, there's your big picture, and now it's time for us to jump into the meat of this particular session, and that is performance and capacity analytics for vSphere. Almost every IT organization that I've interfaced with in the last 15 years of my career has vSphere, right? Has ESX, has a hypervisor running from VMware on premise. But even still, I mean, it's grown, but even still, many IT organizations aren't leveraging analytics for understanding the way they consume resources within their own private clouds. And that's what this conversation is really all about. I mentioned before in that architecture picture that sitting on top of the software-defined data center is a cloud management layer. And I consider that the control plane for the software-defined data center. This is kind of another picture of SDVC with, pooled and abstracted compute, network, and storage resources on the bottom, or applications sitting on top of that, of course. And the three tenets of our cloud management platform, which are policy-based automation, intelligent operations, and cost transparency to the business. These are the key pillars of our cloud management platform that can span not just VMware, private and public clouds, but any cloud solution that you leverage. So if you're dealing, like a lot of IT shops are, with what we call shadow IT or rogue IT, right? Your lines of business going outside your sphere of control and consuming resources on demand from providers like Amazon or Azure and those kind of things. VMware's cloud management platform is the most robust set of products to bring those resources back under your sphere of control, to monitor them for performance, capacity, control, and compliance. What we're going to talk about today is the center pillar of our management platform, and that's intelligent operations. So I'm going to kind of jump into a couple of these things here. I'm going to describe what we think of as some of the key features and capabilities, and the value that you'll get out of those, and then we'll talk about how you can try it in your own shops. So for operations management, there's a couple of things that we focus on. Quality of service, right? Helping you meet service level expectations, helping you monitor your applications better and more effectively. Operational efficiency, right? Making sure you're using your organization's investment in IT as efficiently as possible, right? Helping you reduce the amount of time you spend troubleshooting and fixing infrastructure-related problems, right? And also planning for the future, right? It's been every IT organization I've ever worked for, right? The idea of, well, how many more servers, how much more storage are we going to need next quarter, next year? That question is never an easy one to answer. With VMware's operations management solution, it is. and I'm going to show you that here in a minute. And the third pillar is control and compliance, right? Like I said, bringing policy and regulation and even third-party resources back into IT's ability to monitor and maintain those things. So that said, I think we're all probably recognizing this, and the reality of operations management in IT today is there's just so much stuff to watch, right? There's alerts being generated by every product you've got installed, right? For every virtual machine that's running an application. Even a lot of you probably still have physical servers that you're trying to monitor and manage the same way, right? This creates lots and lots of alerts that, frankly, desensitizes your management staff, right? I mean, how many times do one of you get an email on your phone and in your mind ignore it because you know why that alert is happening, right? These alert storms, create lots of finger pointing, lots of back and forth, which typically in IT leads to over provisioning those resources, right? Sticking with what the reference architecture recommended, even though that database doesn't need that many cores or whatever the use case is, which feeds back into that loop, right? And creates more data to monitor, creates more alerts, more confusion amongst the teams, right? So the first of the things we try and resolve within vRealize operations is this exploding volume of data that we have to monitor in IT. It's really growing at an almost exponential rate, and there's just not a way for human beings to deal with that, right? So that leads kind of perfectly into how we've evolved over the years in IT with monitoring solutions, right? They've been traditional sort of up-down kind of alerts, event correlation, and recently in the last few years we've started to leverage analytics. I joke around, right? Analytics isn't just for finance or marketing anymore, right? With the amount of information that you have to deal with about your IT infrastructure, there's no reason that you shouldn't be leveraging the power of analytics for your own operations, right? Well, in the last year, we've taken it to a whole another level with the release of vRealize Operations 6 and now 6.1 more recently to a truly predictive analytics solution. So not only can we identify rudimentary issues, various thresholds being crossed, that kind of thing, but we can really correlate lots of data from lots of different sources and not only detect complex problems, but identify root cause for them as well. And I'm going to step through a couple of examples of that in this presentation here. So it's important to call out, though, that for us, our Ops and Analytics platform, we leverage as much data as we can find, right? So not just the performance and capacity information that's in vSphere, right? But we want to pull in all of your log, both structured and unstructured log data. We want to look at the health and the planning aspect of IT and the infrastructure as it's from a topology perspective. So it's a completely holistic solution, right? That tries to address all of the growing challenges that IT is facing. So I'm going to deep dive on to one of those pillars for ops management that I talked about, quality of service. We've got a couple of key capabilities that are important to understand in vRealize operations. First and foremost is our self-learning predictive analytics. We have the industry's best IT analytics built into our platform. There's algorithms that no other vendor can offer you to understand the way performance changes in your environment as well as capacity, right? At its core, this isn't a monitoring tool. It's not an alerting tool. I've probably said the word analytics like 15 times already. This is an analytics engine, right? The same kind of powerful analytics that you might find a finance or IT marketing organization using, right? But what this does is it collects data from vCenter and other data sources. In fact, if you didn't know this, your vCenter server that manages your vSphere environment today, it collects tens of thousands of metrics every day. And it usually just kind of dumps them at the end of the day, or kind of rolls them up, collapses them into, daily metrics, those sort of things. What we do with vRealize Ops at its most basic level is we capture all of those metrics for every object in vSphere, for every, there's hundreds of metrics that we track on every object. And we capture those every 20 seconds in your vSphere environment and store those for historical analysis. And once we build up a bank of data, we can provide some really useful insights into how your environment is used, and maybe the better configuration changes for capacity and performance that you could do. So at the core, it's an analytics engine, right? After that, because we have we're analyzing so many of the metrics that are generated in your environment every day, we start to know what's normal. After only a few weeks of watching the trends in your environment, vRealize Ops determines for itself what a normal value is for a given object. And for everything that's automated in Ops, we can obviously override it with manual values. But the benefit here is, I'll step back for a second. Who's ever deployed a monitoring solution and spent 2 hours defining thresholds, right? Saying alert me when this particular metric goes above 80%, right? That's a lot of those alerts that we get in IT that we ignore every day are because we know why a given resource has crossed a certain threshold, right? Because we know it's normal. Well, that's exactly what vROps does, is it learns what's normal in your environment and automatically creates dynamic thresholds, not just upper thresholds, but lower thresholds as well. So the example I always give here is kind of hokey and definitely hypothetical, but take a payroll server that runs a payroll job every Friday morning, right? That server does nothing all week long except a payroll job Friday morning, right? So if you were to try and define a monitoring threshold for that given object, what would it be, right? How would you define it in your solution that it sits idle all week long, but 100% utilization on Friday mornings is normal, right? Well, vROps learns that, and it defines those thresholds automatically. In fact, the kind of alert you would get from vROps regarding that hypothetical scenario, let's say that payroll job doesn't fire off on Friday morning, right? That's the kind of thing you would get an alert on. Hey, an abnormality, something that's abnormal in your environment. This usually happens and didn't, is the kind of alert that most alerting tools just don't give you, right? That's a kind of a good example of that. Another thing that the analytics let us do is it lets us look at what's really important, right? So if there's 500 metrics for one virtual machine, how do you make sense of that, right? As an admin, as an infrastructure team. Well, we've created this idea of super metrics. So every object in your environment gets a health, a risk, and an efficiency score. And health is all about what's happening right now, how hard something's working. Risk is looking into the future. Is it going to run out of capacity? Is it going to hit a performance bottleneck at some point soon? And efficiency is a score that defines how optimized that object is, right? Am I getting enough VMs on that host? Or can I put more in the cluster, right? So every object in vSphere gets a health, risk, and efficiency score. And so you as an infrastructure team can say, okay, my cluster is healthy today, or I'm at risk of running out of memory, right? Those are the types of observations that are bubbled up and right in your face. And then with predictive analytics, we can take that historical data that we've observed in your environment. We can take what's happening right now, and we can look at that going out into the future and decide what's gonna happen, right? And you can ask the question, well, I have enough room for the 10 VMs I'm gonna need for that SharePoint project next quarter, right? You can look at the data and answer that question very plainly within a couple of clicks. It's genuinely one of the most amazing products we have, I think, for managing your vSphere environment, and it just gets me really excited. So I've got a screenshot here for you to kind of step through an example of what a troubleshooting environment might look like. So here's the main dashboard for VROps. Again, health, risk, and efficiency, everything is rolled up into that. And you can see here under the health badge, which is red right now, that all of the objects in vSphere are identified as these little squares in this weather map view. So from a high level perspective, you can see very quickly how healthy your whole environment is, right? This one definitely has some problems, right? And we can see those bubbled up here in the alerts. So in this particular example, I think I've got a cluster selected, and we can see what's listed as the top health alerts for descendants. Those would be the children objects of the cluster. And so here are the various types of alerts that you'll get from VROps. And I want to call your attention to a couple of these because, you know, they're really detailed, and they include root cause. They're the kind of things you just wouldn't expect to get out of you know, a typical monitoring solution. The one I'm going to show you an example of is this one right here. Virtual machine has high CPU contention caused by I/O wait, right? So we're not telling you what the problem is. We're telling you what it is and why, right? But look down that list. Virtual machine has disk I/O latencies because of snapshots. 7 objects affected, 2 recommendations. The great thing about the way we alert with VROps is it's not an individual alert for every single VM or every impacted object. You get one alert for one condition, and then you see a list of the affected objects. It's a really great way to make it a lot easier to catalog and, you know, look at and resolve the issues that exist in your environment. Going down the list, cluster has many virtual machines that have memory ballooning or swapping problems. That's a clear indication of performance problems right there, right? And it has recommendations on how to solve those. And that's what I love about our alerts, is every alert comes with a recommendation. And now in 6.0 and 6.1 version of VROps, you can literally click a button inside an alert to remediate the condition. So I'll follow through with this example here. Virtual machine has disk I/O latency caused by snapshots, right? So 7 objects are having performance problems because of the snapshot, right? You click on that, and it takes you to an alert screen that shows you why, right? Looks like I made a little mistake here. This okay, yeah, no disk latency. All right, great. So in a typical environment where you have administrative rights, there's a button right here on the screen that says, click here to delete your snapshots, right? And it pulls up a list of all the snapshots. You can see all of their attributes, and you can choose which ones you want to remove right now, or you can just take this alert as, you know, good information and go into vCenter and, you know, do it yourself. You can leverage automation to resolve these problems very quickly if you want to, or you know, you can do it in a more manual way. This is just a really, really powerful way to take all of the data that vCenter collects every day and do something actionable with it, right? So we're not just presenting you with alerts, we're presenting you with ways to solve problems, which I think is a paradigm shift in data center management. Another thing that's been changing the market lately is log analytics, right? So vRealize operations can pull data, I mentioned this before, structured and unstructured data from anything that generates a log in your database or in your data center. If any of you use Splunk today, this is our competitive product, right? although we don't charge you per terabyte of storage, right? This is a fantastic product that's well integrated with all of vSphere and vRealize Ops, leverages all of the patented analytics that VROps has to provide you what we think of as sort of that last mile of troubleshooting, right? When you really got to dig into what's causing problems, right? You can filter all of your logs, look for corollaries between different hosts, look for trends, define your own custom search criterias, create alerts based on log files, log file searches. It's really, really powerful for log analysis. But these are just some of the more basic features of vRealize Ops from a monitoring perspective. When I say that every object that's managed and monitored in vSphere gets a health risk and efficiency score, it's true. But we can also extend this into third-party solutions, right? So I mentioned earlier how a lot of us are dealing with that problem of rogue IT and line of business going and spinning up however many instances on Amazon, right? And all of a sudden, there's a big check at the end of the month, right? If you really want to get a handle of that, vRealize Operations has a public cloud connector that'll connect right into Amazon. This is an example of how you can create your own custom dashboards leveraging some of that information, right? So here, VROps is monitoring an online sales and customer service application that's running inside the Amazon cloud. So this isn't even running in your on-prem vSphere environment. It's not even on a VMware hypervisor, but we're bringing it back into your sphere of visibility and your sphere of control to understand the performance. Because let's be real, when line of business can't get Amazon to get over their issue, right, where does it always roll back to? Right? IT's got to fix it, even if it's not their infrastructure. So this is a really good way to kind of bring that back into your sphere of control. The custom dashboard that we created here to monitor this application shows us one big health score right here in the health status of the overall application. And what's great about our super metrics is that health score identifies the health of everything, right? All of the objects that make up that app, not just the VM, not just the applications, not even the hosts or data stores, but everything that it sits on top of, right? So when you click on this application here, it populates one of the widgets in this dashboard and can show us where our performance problem is coming from, right? In this case, this one particular virtual machine. By clicking on it, we can drill in even further and see that the application within that VM is in poor health. By selecting that, going even further, we can see the trends of historical information that can call out why, right? This is a really powerful way to go from, I think there's a problem, to this is what's causing it. And in a matter of minutes, whereas if you've ever tried to troubleshoot this, I'll say manually, you know that can take days, right? So it's a fantastic way to gain visibility and really get the information that you need to start making the right decisions for your applications. So quality service, better alerts, proactive alerts, fixing things before they're problems, right? And really digging into the application's performance of those applications. The next key tenet in our ops management solution is operational efficiency. This is how we help you look at, are you using your capacity as efficiently as possible, right? Are you solving problems as quickly as you can? I got a couple of examples of that here, but we've found over the last few years, as customers more and more use Operations Manager from VMware, that troubleshooting times are reduced as much as 50% or more. I've had many customers that have told me that they'll spend minutes doing things that used to take them days, right? I think that's a lot more than 50%. But I guess we averaged those numbers, and somebody did a study, so I get 50% reduction in troubleshooting time. I totally believe that number. I think is higher from the customers that I've worked with. They use this solution, and 30% resource reclamation as a benefit from capacity optimization. again, I think that's a lowball number. And SoftwareONE is one of our best resellers for working with customers on optimizing their existing vSphere environment. Most of our VMware resellers also sell hardware, right? So they have a little bit of conflict of interest when it comes to the idea of reducing how much hardware you use, right? And I'm not knocking them; they're all great, most of them, and I love working with them. But I love the position that SoftwareONE is in as a pure software reseller to really help you with services around optimizing your existing environment and making sure you're using everything you own as efficiently as possible. So I'm going to show a couple of examples here, and just checking the chat real quick. Noah asked a really great question. Where can you see a list of the packs for third-party software? I assume you mean like the Amazon example I showed a minute ago. Solution Exchange, VMware Solution Exchange. If you just Google Solution Exchange VMware, that's where all of the third-party management packs for vRealize Ops are located. Also Russ asked, is this a new vCenter? No, this is a new tool separate from vCenter that pulls all of your data from vCenter. So if I didn't make that point clear enough before, when you're not connecting to third-party things, if you're just looking at your vSphere environment, all this data comes from your vCenter server. So you're not pulling your hosts or your VMs. Additionally, we just collect data from vCenter every couple of minutes. Okay, so here's another good example of how we can reduce the amount of time it takes to troubleshoot, right? You're going to get an alert based on the thresholds you define for alerting, right? So you can say, alert me when the health score goes red, alert me when the health score gets to 60%, whatever that is. And you can define those very easily within the system. And it goes across everything, right? So if you have a poor health score on a data store, you're going to see that. You're going to get an alert on a data store alert like this one here, high device latency, right? If you get a high risk score on a cluster that's about to run out of capacity, right? That happens for many of our customers, right? It's usually because of allocation is the type of capacity it runs out of. But because most of us in our environments today are over provisioned, although I know a few of you out there are running really close to the wire, right? So this will let you run even closer if you want to, right? If you're one of those shops that tries to do everything you can with the little bit you've got, this is that tool that's going to let you get even closer to that, right? So drilling in on that latency alert again. Here we go. Here's an example of that button right there on the alert, right? You see at the top of the alert exactly what's causing the problem, right? And you see the objects affected and the symptoms that are contributing to that, right? And then you see our recommendations for what you need to do for it, right? In this case, device latency on a data store, right? Move some VMs off of it. Right here from the alert, you can click the Migrate VM button and do a storage vMotion for those virtual machines. I don't think any solution out there besides this one gives you that level of end-to-end capability right from an alert, right? So switch gears and start talking about capacity more. It takes a little bit more time in your environment to understand the capacity changes. And that depends greatly on, how dynamic your environment is. If you've got if you create and tear down lots of virtual machines very often, you're going to have a lot more change. I guess that's what I should say. The rate of change in your environment determines how long it takes for the analytics engine to really get a hold on your capacity. But for most customers, 30 days is enough to really understand what your trends look like, right? Obviously, there's quarterly, half, and yearly business cycles, right? So the longer you run it, the more accurate it gets. But 30 days is usually enough for us to get a good look at your capacity. And when we're talking about capacity, we're not just thinking of storage, right? We're also thinking of network and disk IOs, right? We're thinking of how much RAM you have, how many CPUs you have, and really every one of the resources that's important in your vSphere environment. Here's one of my favorite widgets in VROps is the capacity badge. So here I've got a data center selected, and we're looking at capacity, the capacity analysis view, and this shows you on a bar graph how much capacity exists in your environment, how much is reserved for various buffers. In this case, it's just the high availability buffer. Many of you probably know high availability is a feature within vSphere where if a host fails, we can restart virtual machines on other hosts and reduce your downtime, right? Well, you have to reserve a certain amount of capacity on your cluster in order for that to be successful. Most of my customers, when we go in and do an analysis of their environment, they usually have that HA buffer way higher than they need it, which causes a false capacity score. So hey, if you guys are interested in trying this out, I'm going to show you a link at the end where you can go to SoftwareONE's website and download a special version of VROps that has some really useful reports built right into it. But during that process, one of the things that trips up a lot of customers is this right here. They come and look at this, and there's a big blue or black bar right here. If you've got your high availability set to some really high host failure number, that'll often cause a false capacity score here. But I'm getting into the weeds, and I apologize. I'm going to pull back out for a second. What you see on the capacity analysis screen is essentially all of your available capacity defined in terms of gigahertz, gigabytes, megabits, gigabits, whatever you've got, right? You can see everything that VROps has observed for the network and storage I/O, and everything that it knows you have for CPU, memory, and disk. You can see how each one of those is broken out for buffers, what's usable, and what your existing usage is. You can see in my test lab, it's way over allocated. In fact, that's what this says right here, right? Capacity is most constrained by memory allocation. That's honestly the most constrained resource for every customer that I've seen is memory, and typically memory allocation. So what percentage of your cluster is left from the resource perspective, and you can see right here at the top of the capacity what will fit, right? So you can come here and very quickly see how many virtual machines will fit based on a certain size profile. Of course, in my test lab, nothing. Another really useful metric, and I don't have a screenshot of it here, but you can kind of see the tab right here is time remaining. It's basically the same graph, but instead of looking at how many virtual machines will fit, it'll tell you when you're going to run out of that resource. So it'll say you have 30 days left of memory based on your current usage, that kind of thing. Really, really useful. Now, flip that, and when it has that understanding, you can start using the project's capability to really do capacity planning. And what this lets us do is define various projects and look at how their capacity will impact the trend in your environment. So in this particular view, and I know there's kind of lots of stuff on this slide, but this green line right here represents the available capacity in the cluster. And if we added a project with a couple of virtual machines, so in this case, 60 virtual machines were added as part of this project, and we can see that when this project starts, that takes the trend above the available capacity of the cluster. So we can see that in red, this new project's going to need more capacity, right? So from there, we can model another project. Let's add another host to give us more capacity, right? And you can layer these projects, and we'll see that by adding another host, we'll get back into the green, right? So it's a really simple kind of capability that's based on really, really powerful analytics of your environment, right? Nobody else can do this for you. So I've seen customers that have just loaded this up. They've got every project planned, both adding capacity as well as reducing capacity. So one of the things you can do to try out VROps, like I've said before, is an assessment over 30 days. Use it in trial mode. SoftwareONE can walk you through it and show you some of the values. And you can model the capacity changes that you'll make based on the reports out of the vSphere optimization assessment right here within the project planning screen. So projects are one of the newest features in vRealize Ops and really give you that full end-to-end capability of managing everything IT needs to from an operational perspective. I alluded to this a second ago with the reports that you can get out of an optimization assessment. The reclaimable capacity badge is another one of the views that you can use inside vROps that literally breaks out where all your waste is in terms of number of CPUs, gigabytes of RAM, and storage. SoftwareONE, at the end of the vSphere optimization assessment, will take you through this and can calculate for you exactly what each of these resources wasted costs you in terms of dollars. It's a really powerful ROI analysis for every customer I've ever done it for. When they see, what 15 vCPUs wasted costs you. By the way, our industry research says on average that's $350 for one vCPU. It'll vary in your environment, and we could help you figure that out. But lots of waste in most of our customers' over-provisioned environments, and like I said, this tool will let you rein that in, right-size those workloads, and start running a lot leaner and meaner. And again, at every turn inside vROps, the ability to change and take action on the recommendations are right there within the tool. So this is showing how, when you look at the reclaimable capacity views within vROps, if there's reclaimable CPUs on a VM, you can change those right there from that view, right? In fact, if you're running the latest hardware version, for virtual machine hardware version, it supports hotplug, right? So you can hotplug processors and memory right in and out of your virtual machines without ever taking them down. Really, really sexy stuff. So the last piece I wanted to talk to, again, another pillar of ops management was control and compliance, right? And I've alluded to this a couple of times, but I wanted to expand on it a bit because it's not just about monitoring or watching the things out in Amazon, right? You definitely want to do that, right? But it's also about looking at your applications because some are more important than others, right? I mean, you've got business critical apps or tier 1 apps, and you've got tier 1 and tier 2 apps, right? Within vROps, there's tremendous capability for customization and flexibility with groups and policies. I didn't get into that in any detail here, but the reality is you can define many groups, groups for individual applications. In fact, vROps will discover groups, application groups. It'll suggest all of these virtual machines make up one application? I mean, it'll make those kinds of suggestions for creating custom groups. And you can define policies specific for those, right? So if you want to change the way you're alerted or the way it monitors or analyzes capacity for a set of virtual machines, you can absolutely do that. And from a compliance perspective, leveraging parts of vROps, you can really start looking at monitoring compliance right down to every I and T. And what I mean by that is not just in the lower left or lower right here, regulatory compliance. If you've got needs around HIPAA or PCI or SOX or any of the other governmental regulations that are out there, we've got templates built right in to a component of advanced vROps called Configuration Manager that will constantly monitor your compliance posture, right? So if you get that surprise visit from an auditor one day, you can go into Config Manager, print out the report, put them in a room and let them go through a few hundred pages because you know exactly where you are for every object in your environment, whether it's in or out of compliance and why. And built right into that tool is the ability to remediate any of those problems. Maybe you're noticing a theme here, and it's the same across all of vROps. But to us, compliance means more than just regulations, right? VMware's own best practices in terms of our vSphere hardening guide, Other vendors that I'm sure you use, Microsoft and Cisco, we have packs for their own compliance policies and guidelines and best practices. And you can create your own custom IT policies and define those and monitor your compliance against them. So it's really a full-featured solution for proactive management. If you just have a certain set of applications or workloads in your IT organization that you need to monitor for certain compliance, right? You can do that, and you can do that very specifically and deliberately. Here's here's an example of what the compliance badge screen looks like, right? So it can tell you how many standards it's monitoring against, which rules are being tested, how compliant you are, and it'll show you in no uncertain terms, right, which compliance rules you're breaking, or if you're on the border of, right? So and again, right in context for this badge, you can get into the deep detail with Configuration Manager and remediate those specific compliance violations, right? Because that's what it's all about, right? It's not about being 100% compliant. It's just about knowing where you are. And that's the hard part for so many organizations these days. So, if you thought at the beginning of this that VMware was just a hypervisor, I hope I've changed your mind a little bit. And I know, I got to tell you, I've only scratched the surface on the things that vRealize Operations can do for you from a operational perspective. There is just so much more, and I'd love the chance to tell you about it. But I'm nearing the end of my time here. I want to hit on a couple more points. I was joking about some of these numbers a minute ago, but I absolutely think they're real. Huge return on investment. In fact, every customer that I've done an ROI analysis for after a vSphere optimization assessment, or a VOA, has seen a better than a 2x return on investment. And what I mean by that is, when you leverage our easiest version of VROps, that's vSphere with Ops Management, it's a really inexpensive way to start adopting these methodologies. More visibility, better time to resolve for your issues. At the end of the day, I like to think about VROps as changing the way your IT teams work, right? Instead of being reactive and fighting fires every day, you can start being proactive, fixing performance problems or outages before they ever even happen. Is not science fiction, right? It's real. It's here, and customers have been doing it. So I'd encourage all of you to try this. One last little metric I'll show you. This is from a third-party study. 88% of customers see value in vRealize Operations in less than 3 months, which is huge. But the bigger number on this chart is actually the smaller number. 41% of them see value in the solution in less than a month. And I know that's real because I've worked with customers, and I've done proof of concepts that have lasted 16 days, and the customer says, that's it. We're ready to take this bigger within our organization. So that's my call to action for you guys, is to take advantage of an operations management platform that's purpose-built for the mobile cloud era, that'll let you leverage policy-based automation and deliver a really fast time to value. So this is VMware, right? Talking about my favorite product that we offer. But the best way for you guys to get started on this is to reach out to your SoftwareONE rep and ask them. I'd love to try vRealize Operations, and I hear you guys can take me through it. They absolutely can. They've got a great team that walks customers through these assessments. And they've even put it up on their website, and I got a little screenshot of that here. There's a link down here at the bottom, softwareone.com/VMware/web vSphere optimization assessment. Not exactly a bit.ly link, but you can search for it on their page and find it too. This is what it looks like. You click this button right here to download the assessment trial, and that'll log you into your My VMware account, and it'll start downloading, like I said, a special version of vRealize Operations that has the vSphere optimization assessment reports built right into it. So you can walk through the process yourself or with the assessment team at SoftwareONE to understand the configuration health of your environment in the first day. Within the first week, you can start looking at performance problems. And then after 20 days or so, we've got enough data in of your environment to give you a really meaningful report on all your targets for optimization. So at the least, at the end of an optimization assessment, you'll have a report you can take action on to resize all your virtual machines and reclaim all of that expensive waste that exists today. So I'd encourage you to reach out to that team. They're really great, and they do these really well. Again, softwareone.com/VMware/web vSphere optimization assessment. Or reach out to your SoftwareONE rep and say, how can I do a VOA? And otherwise, you're free to go. Thanks for your time today. Please reach out to SoftwareONE and ask for a vSphere optimization assessment.